Catherine Belton, Putin's People, How the KGB Took Back Russia and Then Took on the West. In Putin's People, Catherine Belton takes readers on a journey through Vladimir Putin's life, from his early days as a member of the KGB to his rise to power in Russia. Belton weaves a nuanced and engaging narrative, providing insight into Putin's relationships with key figures and his role in shaping modern Russia. As you dive into this book summary, you'll uncover secrets behind Kremlin operations, the KGB's influence in politics and economy, and its connections with the infamous oligarchs. Prepare to delve into Putin's world of power, corruption, and covert strategy that stretches far beyond Russia's borders.
Putin's KGB past. Vladimir Putin's early life reveals his intense drive to join the KGB, his training in martial arts to vent his aggression, and his involvement in Operation Luch, a KGB mission to maintain their presence in Germany by recruiting agents and engaging in terrorism. This summary sheds light on Putin's past and highlights the beginning of his journey to attain the power he holds today. The rise of business tycoons in post-Soviet Russia. In the post-Soviet era, a group of young business tycoons gained power, surpassing the influence of former KGB officials. President Boris Yeltsin's reforms, including privatization, allowed the oligarchs to accumulate power and gain controlling stakes in major enterprises. The KGB was abolished in 1991, but its former operatives continued to hold government positions and control the oil sector during the 90s. In contrast, oligarchs such as Vladimir Putin gained their power through financial transactions like loans for shares privatization, which helped enrich them with controlling stakes in major industries. The oligarchs' subsequent influence far eclipsed the former KGB officials who previously held the country's financial and economic power. Putin's path to power. Vladimir Putin's rise to power involved playing a key role in allowing the KGB to take control of St. Petersburg's economy. Putin served as right-hand man to Anatoly Sobchak, who became the city's mayor amidst chaos and economic decline. The KGB enriched itself through the creation of a slush fund, taking control of the seaport and oil terminal, and issuing export licenses to front companies for non-existent food imports. Putin's role in this alliance helped pave the way for his future presidency and the appointment of KGB colleagues to senior executive positions. Putin's dramatic rise. After losing his campaign for re-election as mayor of St. Petersburg in 1996, Anatoly Sobchak, loyal to Putin, resigned as the city's administrator. Immediately invited to Moscow, Putin was appointed head of the Kremlin's Foreign Property Department and quickly rose through the ranks after receiving several promotions. Former KGB generals propelled Putin's rise as they needed an individual who could cooperate with them, follow orders and appear strong on television. Putin's rise was further bolstered following 3 deadly bombings in September 1999, which caused a nationwide panic and led to him publicly vowing to avenge innocent Russians who had died. Despite doubts surrounding the events, Putin's strong and tough leadership enabled him to garner major public support and eventually become Russia's president. Putin's takeover of Russia's oil industry. As Putin came into power, he began to seize control of Russia's oil industry, which was mostly in the hands of oligarchs. After taking over the media, Putin set his sights on the oil tycoons. First, he targeted Lukoil with a bogus investigation, leading to a $103 million payment to the government. Lukoil may have also secretly agreed to give Putin part of the company. Finally, Putin went after Yukos, Russia's largest oil company, whose owner refused to give up his business. The rise and fall of Mikhail Khodorkovsky. Mikhail Khodorkovsky, the former chairman and CEO of Yukos, was a self-proclaimed adrenaline junkie who refused to bend to Putin's will. Despite Khodorkovsky's bold moves, Putin's crackdown proved too much for him to handle, resulting in his arrest and Yukos's seizure by the Kremlin. Khodorkovsky was ultimately given an 8-year jail sentence for tax fraud. Putin's takeover of Yukos signaled the KGB's triumph over the oligarchy and resulted in a significant shift of Russia's oil output from private hands to state control. Putin's exploitation of terrorism. On October 23, 2003, armed Chechen fighters stormed Moscow's Dubrovka Musical Theater. The situation was mishandled, resulting in 113 deaths. Kremlin insider claims suggest that the attack had been planned by Nikolai Patrushev, FSB chief at the time, to increase national support for the Chechen War and paint Putin as a hero. The apparent terrorist attack was a useful myth to help Putin's regime forge a national identity. Putin exploited terrorism and attempted to revive the Russian Orthodox religion while vilifying the West. Putin's Obschak. The Kremlin established a slush fund by selling shares at a discounted price to obscure companies that later turned out to be connected to Putin's ally. This created a financial powerhouse that Putin could control and use for personal and political gain. The fund was used to enrich Putin and his KGB cronies, build lavish mansions, and fund political operations abroad. It was used to retaliate against Ukraine by threatening to hike gas prices unless Ukraine agreed to a deal that benefited Putin's crony. The shady companies and slush funds then expanded to London. Russia's financial takeover of London. Russia's burgeoning economy in the early 2000s allowed companies to list their shares on Western stock exchanges, especially in London. The lax requirements for listing on the London Stock Exchange attracted Russian companies seeking to avoid transparency. The Russians infected the West with their shady financial dealings and took advantage of London's cash flow, disregarding their shunned democracy. Russians splurged on London real estate brokers, while lawyers and bankers serviced the oligarchs' billions. Putin also used Chelsea Football Club to gain acceptance for Russian presence in London. Russian Proxy War. After Dmitry Medvedev assumed the Russian presidency, hopes for a liberal Russia faded away as Russia escalated military action in Georgia. When Putin regained presidency, financial schemes continued while businesspeople were afraid to invest due to Putin's imperial expansion project. In 2014, Russian aggression led to the annexation of Crimea and a proxy war in eastern Ukraine, causing the deaths of over 13,000 people. This was a warning of Russia's future turbulence. Putin's cultural colonization. Putin's regime used complex money laundering schemes to promote their ideology and culture in the West. The book's summary reveals Putin's questionable methods of funneling black cash into the West through intricate money laundering schemes. One way was through offshore companies receiving payments from tycoons close to Putin. The other method involved shell companies signing fake loan agreements used to siphon money out of Russia. Putin also used mirror trades that allowed investors to purchase Russian stocks in Russian rubles, while other companies sold the same stock through Deutsche Bank in London. Apart from cash, Putin also wanted to spread his ideology and culture in the West. Similar to Western NGOs like George Soros's Open Society, Putin's regime formed their own NGOs to cultivate an ideology based on Russian orthodoxy, focusing on tradition, subservience to the state, and intolerance of homosexuality. Russian cash was used to promote Kremlin's version of world events, popularize Russian language and culture, fund Russian paramilitary youth camps, a biker group called the Night Wolves, and the foundation of Saint Vasily the Great that funded pro-Kremlin separatists in Ukraine. Furthermore, Putin's men were using slush funds to support European anti-establishment parties on the left and right, particularly in the Czech Republic, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Austria. Russia aimed to weaken the EU and break its consensus on sanctions against Russia by cultivating extremism in these countries. Later, they targeted bigger Western European countries like France, Germany, and Italy. In the UK, Kremlin cash went into Tory coffers, and Russia's security chief Nikolai Patrushev developed a close relationship with Boris Johnson, leading the Brexit campaign that further weakened the EU. Finally, Putin's regime set its sights on the US in the form of Donald Trump. The book's summary suggests that Putin's goal was to colonize the West by spreading his ideology and culture in the West. Russian ties of Donald Trump. Donald Trump had business relationships with Russians as far back as the 1990s and continuing into his rise to presidency. Russian emigrant businessmen offered to finance his projects in exchange for cash into the U.S. Russia found a close ally in Trump as his family and lawyers became involved with a potential Trump Tower project in Moscow. Trump's election victory was a win for Russia as his policies sow discontent within America, which benefits Putin and his KGB cronies.
Putin's People delivers an engrossing account of Vladimir Putin's life and the intricate web of politics, wealth, and power he has spun. Catherine Belton sheds light on the often unseen machinations behind the scenes, detailing Russian interference in global affairs, the KGB's instrumental role in shaping politics and economy, and the rise of oligarchs. This book reveals how Putin has effectively established an authoritarian regime in Russia, at the expense of democracy and economic stability. By attempting to destabilize Western institutions and fostering extremism, Putin and his circle have sought to extend their reach beyond Russia's borders. As we witness the geopolitical repercussions of Putin's ambitions, it is crucial to understand the forces at play and the complex history that has led to the present state of affairs.